Pandemonium had swallowed the headquarters of Leon Corpole. Giant monitors strobed with crimson alerts, critical security failure, emergency restart in progress. Engineers sprinted between workstations. Managers bellowed commands that dissolved into the noise before anyone could act on them. And at the eye of the storm, utterly still, stood Arthur Leong, CEO of a nation's most powerful technology company. His gaze was glacial, the kind of stare that made subordinates forget their own names. 30 seconds, he said, glancing at his wristwatch without a flicker of panic. Fix this, or you're all looking for new jobs. We're trying, sir. One engineer managed, voice cracking. But the system won't accept any more commands. Arthur said nothing. He crossed his arms and waited for catastrophe. That was when the emergency doors flew open. Every head in the room turned. Delivery, unsweetened lemon tea and whole wheat bread with tofu, shouted a woman's voice. She came barreling in, still wearing her helmet, delivery backpack bouncing, her t-shirt dark with sweat. Luna Oliveira, an app-based courier, had clearly arrived somewhere she was never meant to be. Miss, this is a restricted area, someone barked. Wait, isn't this the 32nd floor? Order number 49. It's in the system. Get out of here. Now. Relax. I'm just delivering. My customer is... She squinted at her phone. Arthur Leong. The room went silent. Arthur turned to face her slowly. You know who I am? Of course. Your name's right here in the app. She held up her screen. Order placed at 11:42. You're 1 minute late, he said flatly. There was traffic. She exhaled. Never mind. Here's your food. Luna held out the bag, genuinely puzzled by the way 30 professionals were staring at her, as though she had descended from the ceiling. Then she noticed the massive display behind them. That system. She tilted her head. Are you trying to restart it while the core cache is still active? One of the engineers scoffed under his breath. Now the delivery girl wants to teach us. No, it's just... Luna pointed at the cascading code. If you keep that line running, it'll go into defense mode and freeze everything. Arthur stepped forward. You understand this? A little. I was in computer science, college. Dropped out in my 4th semester. A pause. Can I try? Arthur glanced around the room. Every engineer found something fascinating to study on the floor. Go ahead, he said. Luna approached the panel, touched the screen with quiet deliberation, and navigated to a buried line of code. A few typed commands, one unplugged cable, a restart routed through the backup power source. 3 seconds passed. System stable. Access restored. The alarms died. The lights normalized. Silence pressed against every wall. It worked? She asked, blinking at the room's collective disbelief. Arthur studied the screen, then turned to her. What's your name? Luna. Luna Oliveira. She shifted the backpack. Can I go now? Wait. He stepped forward. Don't you want a job? No thanks. I have more deliveries to make. And she was gone. Vanished through the emergency doors as quickly as she had appeared, as though she hadn't just done something extraordinary. Out on the wet streets, Luna wove through traffic on her motorcycle, grinning despite herself. She had no idea that her face had already been captured by more than 30 security cameras. No idea that her image was bouncing through company message threads, tech forums, and social media feeds like a spark in dry grass. 30 minutes later, in a darkened office high above the city, Arthur sat alone reviewing the security footage. He rewound it again, zoomed in on her face again. Luna Oliveira, he murmured. Across town, Luna pushed through her front door with a plastic bag of rice and eggs. Mom, I'm home. Her mother, Helena, thin and pale in her wheelchair, offered a tired smile from across the room. How was your day, sweetie? Same as always. Had to run again, but everything turned out fine. And the rain? Still hasn't started. I'm gonna make soup, okay? But as Luna changed out of her uniform and scrubbed her hands at the sink, 2 men sat watching her modest house from the shadow of a parked car across the street. That's her? Asked the one in the cap. Yes. Arthur said to find the delivery girl from the incident. That's the one. What does he want with her? No one knows. But if Mr. Leon wants it, we follow orders. The following morning, Luna stopped dead in front of a newsstand. The cover of the country's most prominent business magazine stared back at her. The headline read, "Delivery girl fixes in seconds what 30 engineers couldn't." Who is Luna Oliveira? She bolted for the bus stop, heart hammering. No, no, no. This is going to cause me trouble. She was already too late. As she rounded the corner, a black limousine rolled to a stop directly in front of her. The tinted window descended with deliberate slowness. It was him. "Luna," said Arthur, with the faintest curve of a smile. "I've been looking for you." Her eyes widened. "What? I need your help." Again. Luna took a step back and nearly toppled over the cracked edge of the sidewalk. "My help?" she repeated. "Look, I was just doing my job yesterday. It was luck." Arthur held that penetrating gaze, the kind that seemed to catalog everything passing behind a person's eyes. The limousine gleamed in the morning light, drawing stares from every direction. Luck, a half smile. No one solves a dynamic encryption issue in a second by luck. "I need to get to work," Luna said, tightening the straps on her backpack. "How much do you make a day?" Arthur asked abruptly. "Luna Froneth. That's pretty personal. I'll pay you double for a special delivery." He extended a matte black card embossed with gold lettering. "Luna Gesetatif." Then she took it. "That's the address. 7 o'clock tonight." He held her gaze. "Don't be late." The window rose. The limousine slid away without a sound, leaving Luna standing on the pavement, holding the card as though it might detonate. Back at Leon Corp, Arthur kept his attention fixed on the dossier his team had assembled on Luna Oliveira. Each click peeled back another layer. Dropped out of computer science in her 3rd year. Exceptional grades. Full scholarship. Lived on campus. Left after her father's death. Zhao Wu, Arthur's personal assistant of over a decade, stood silently near the door. Why would someone with that kind of potential be delivering food? Arthur muttered, more to himself than to Zhao. "Maybe she's hiding something," Zhao offered. Arthur swiveled in his chair and gazed out at the city through the floor-to-ceiling glass. "Keep digging. I want to know everything about her." A news notification blinked at the corner of the screen. An article from 3 years prior. Acclaimed chef accused of poisoning at luxury restaurant. The photo showed a middle-aged man with the same quiet, self-conscious smile as Luna. "Interesting," Arthur murmured. "A thief's daughter should disappear." A shout split the air of the small neighborhood market where Luna was picking up medicine for her mother. She went rigid, fingers tightening around the box of painkillers. Rita Meneses stood in the next aisle, blonde hair, designer sunglasses, the same practiced air of cruelty she had worn all through college. "Thought you vanished after your dad got arrested," Rita announced, loud enough for every nearby shopper to hear. "How does it feel to be the daughter of someone who nearly killed 15 people? Luna drew a slow breath and mentally counted to 3. "My father was innocent," she replied, not turning around. Rita let out a sharp laugh. "Of course. That's why he killed himself in prison, right? Innocent people always hang themselves." Luna's blood ran hot. She spun around to face her, but her phone buzzed in her pocket. A message from her mother. "Don't forget the medicine, sweetheart. Love you." It was enough. Luna paid and walked out without a word. "Coward," Rita called after her. "Just like your father." Walking home, Luna fought to keep the tears behind her eyes where they belonged. 3 years had passed since Carlos Oliveira, a gifted chef at the peak of his career, had been accused of poisoning guests at one of the city's most exclusive restaurants. 3 years since he was found dead in his cell, just 2 weeks after his arrest, having apparently hanged himself. The day she got that news, everything in her life shattered at once. College, her scholarship, any version of the future she had imagined. Helena's health had collapsed in the months that followed, a degenerative condition the doctors linked directly to the trauma. Luna had come home and never left. When she arrived at the house, She found her younger brother Pedro, 12 years old and relentlessly determined, crouched beneath the kitchen sink with a wrench. "Hey, Pe, what are you doing?" "It's leaking again," he replied, not looking up. "We're wasting a lot of water like this." Luna smiled despite the ache in her chest. Pedro had their father's stubbornness. "Where's Mom?" "Sleeping. She was really tired today." Luna looked in on Helena, who lay curled in the narrow bed, the peeling wall behind her half lit by the afternoon light. On the nightstand, a photograph of Carlos, beaming beside an award-winning dish, the last honor he ever received. Her phone rang. Marcos, her manager at the delivery platform. "Luna, you're out. I've had enough complaints. First you sneak into a high-security company, then you show up in the news. This is bad for business." "Marcos, please. I need this job." "It's over, Luna. Bring back the uniform tomorrow." The line went dead. Luna slid down against the cold kitchen wall and sat on the floor. Another job gone. The money had barely been covering her mother's medication. She turned the black card over in her fingers. The address. 7 o'clock tonight. Maybe it was the only option she had left. At 7:02 p.m., Luna chained her battered bicycle to a post in front of one of the city's most exclusive restaurants. She wore the best she owned, jeans that were only slightly faded, a blouse borrowed from the neighbor downstairs. The valet took one look at her and pointed around the building. "Service entrance is around back." "I'm looking for Arthur Leong," Luna said, chin lifted. "He invited me." The man laughed. "Right, and I'm the president of France." At that moment, a silver Aston Martin eased to the curb. Arthur stepped out, adjusting the lapels of an immaculate suit. The valet materialized instantly at his side. "Mr. Leong, your table is ready." Arthur spotted Luna and crossed toward her instead. "You're late," he said, checking his platinum watch. 2 minutes. I came by bike." He glanced at the rusted bicycle, then at her outfit, and said nothing. "Let's go inside." Every pair of eyes in the dining room found them as they walked in. Politicians, celebrities, industry figures draped in expensive fabric and casual wealth. Arthur guided her up to a mezzanine table overlooking the illuminated skyline. "Why am I here?" Luna asked once they were seated. "I want to offer you a job. Security technology." Luna gave a dry laugh. "I didn't finish college. I don't care about degrees. I care about results." A waiter materialized with champagne. Arthur dismissed him with a look. Luna leaned forward. "Why are you really doing this? You don't even know me." Arthur studied her for a long moment. Those cold, calculating eyes held something else underneath, something that looked almost like curiosity. "You did in 1 second what 30 experts couldn't do in an hour. That caught my attention. You looked into my past, didn't you?" Luna said suddenly. "You know about my father." Something moved behind his expression. "I know he was a talented chef, and supposedly a criminal." "That's what everyone says," Luna added, her voice going brittle. Arthur leaned forward. "And what do you say?" A knot formed at her throat. "That he was innocent, that he would never poison anyone, that he loved cooking more than anything in his life." The waiter reappeared with their food. An architect's vision of a plate arrived in front of each of them. Luna stared at hers, something turning over in her stomach. "My dad cooked better," she muttered. Arthur raised an eyebrow. "You cook too?" "I learned from him," she said, tasting carefully. "But I never got the chance to keep learning." He watched her with an attention that made her shift in her seat. For the first time, she noticed how striking he was in a guarded, quietly formidable way that she found more unsettling than she wanted to admit. "I have a proposal," he said at last. "A test, actually." "What kind of test?" "Tomorrow. Company headquarters. 9 o'clock. Luna hesitative. And if I say no?" Arthur smiled, an expression that gave nothing away. "Then I'll have wasted my time, and you'll miss an opportunity." The rest of dinner passed in a weighted silence. Luna still couldn't decode what this man actually wanted from her. As they stepped out of the restaurant, a sleek, perfectly poised woman intercepted them. "Arthur, what a surprise to see you here." Her eyes traveled over Luna with practiced condescension. "And who's this?" "Your new assistant, Sophia Meneses," Arthur said, his tone dropping several degrees. "Didn't expect to see you." Luna went still at the name. "Meneses, you two know each other?" Arthur asked, reading the air between them. "Not exactly," Luna said carefully, "but I know your daughter, Rito." Recognition lit up Sophia's face, the sharp, hungry kind. "Wait, you're Carlos Oliveira's daughter? The chef who tried to poison my husband." The floor seemed to dissolve beneath Luna's feet. "My father was innocent," she said automatically. Sophia laughed, a precise, weaponized sound. "Your father was a failure who couldn't handle competition. He tried to kill Victor out of jealousy." Arthur watched the exchange without expression. "Vitor Menezes, the restaurant chain owner?" "My husband," Sophia confirmed. "He nearly died because of her father." "It was a setup," Luna said, her voice rising. "My father would never do that." "The evidence said otherwise, dear," Sophia replied, each word dipped in venom. "Just like the jury that convicted him." Luna moved forward, and Arthur placed a hand gently on her arm. "I believe we're done here, Sophia." His voice carried the flat authority of someone accustomed to ending conversations. "Have a good night." Sophia's farewell smile was like a paper cut. "Be careful who you hire, Arthur. Bad blood always shows itself." When she was gone, Luna pulled her arm back. She was trembling. "Now you see why I can't take your job. This whole city thinks I'm the daughter of a criminal." Arthur regarded her steadily. "And that stops you from proving them wrong?" "I've tried. No one believes me." "I didn't say you had to convince them," Arthur said. "I said you had to prove it." Something kindled inside her, a small, stubborn flame. "Ow! Come tomorrow. Find out." He got into his car, and Luna stood on the pavement between doubt and the first thing that felt like possibility in 3 years. When she got home, she found an eviction notice on the kitchen table. 3 months behind on rent. Pedro was asleep on the couch, one arm wrapped around their father's old cookbook. Luna stood for a long moment looking at the photograph of Carlos on the wall, his eyes always warm, always smiling. Her phone buzzed. A message from Arthur. "The limousine will be there at 8:30. Don't be late." She looked at the court summons, at her brother, sleeping, at her father's face on the wall. "I have to try, Dad," she thought. "For all of us." Across town, Arthur sat in the blue glow of his monitor. Documents from the Carlos Oliveira investigation covered the screen. "I found something odd, sir," Zhao said from the doorway. "About the poisoning case. The toxicology reports, there are inconsistencies." Arthur allowed himself a small, private smile. "Keep digging, and get everything ready for tomorrow." "Are you sure, sir?" "The board won't approve." "The board doesn't need to know." "Not yet." On the screen, a photograph of Luna appeared beside her father's. The same quiet determination in both pairs of eyes. The same smile that held something it refused to surrender. Arthur closed the laptop. Tomorrow should be interesting. At 8:27, Luna stood on the pavement outside her house, wearing the borrowed blouse and the least faded pair of jeans she owned. Pedro watched from the window, transfixed, as a black limousine turned the corner of their street. "That's the first time I've ever seen a real limo," the boy said, eyes enormous. Luna forced a smile over her nerves. "Don't wait for me for lunch. Take care of Mom, okay?" "Are you going to work for the rich man?" "I don't know yet, Pa. I'm just going to see what he wants." The driver stepped out to open the rear door. Luna had expected Arthur inside, but the car was empty. During the ride, she watched her neighborhood recede. The low rooftops, the fissured sidewalks, the hand-painted signs on small shops. Gradually, the city transformed. Mirrored towers and wide, flawless avenues replacing everything she knew. At Leon Corp, a flawlessly dressed secretary met her in the lobby. "Miss Oliveira, please follow me." She was escorted to the top floor, where a glass-walled conference room held a circle of executives in tailored suits. The room went quiet the moment she walked in. Arthur sat at the head of the table, composed as granite. "Ladies and gentlemen, This is Luna Oliveira. The executives assessed her with the kind of measuring look usually reserved for balance sheets. A gray-haired man leaned toward Arthur. Can we speak privately? Of course, Robert. Luna, please wait in my office. Alone in the CEO's office, Luna stood surrounded by plaques, degrees, and a sweeping view of the city. Awards lined one wall. On his desk, no personal photographs, only work. She felt small in the most literal sense. The door opened. Arthur entered, followed by Robert and two others. This is outrageous, Robert said without preamble. Hiring a criminal's daughter for security? That's a liability to the company. Luna's face went hot. My father was innocent. Your opinion doesn't matter, girl, Robert cut in. The facts speak for themselves. Arthur remained calm. The facts show that Luna solved the problem none of you could. She got lucky. Then let's test her, Arthur said, turning to Luna. Tonight, the company's charity dinner. Luna Fronith. I thought the test would be here. Change of plans. Tonight, we're hosting top investors and international partners. Formal dinner. A beat. Chef Elise Dubois is overseeing the event. 3 Michelin stars. You once said your father cooked better. A slight pause. Prove it. Silence. You're suggesting this delivery girl compete with Elise Dubois? Robert asked, stunned. Exactly, Arthur replied. If Luna prepares a better dish, she gets a position at the company and $50,000. And if I lose? Luna asked. You go back to deliveries. No harm to your name, or what's left of it. Robert laughed. She probably can't even fry an egg. Luna's jaw tightened. That small flame inside her surged. I accept. The Leon Corp event hall glittered with golden light. Elegantly dressed guests flowed between tables draped in white linen. Champagne was poured, and the city's elite circulated through the room with practiced ease. Luna observed it all from the kitchen doorway, her simple clothes now covered by a white apron. Inside the main kitchen, Elise Dubois, a precise, commanding Frenchwoman with immaculate posture, ran her team like a military operation. When she spotted Luna, her nose wrinkled slightly. Tia, Seika? She asked her assistant in French, clearly irritated. After a whispered explanation, she turned and appraised Luna from head to foot. So, are you the petite challenger? Here we cook with skill, not with luck. Luna didn't answer. She scanned the available ingredients, already mapping her approach in her mind. Arthur appeared in the doorway, sharp in his tuxedo. Is everything ready for the challenge? Oui, it is rapide. But I still think this is ridiculous. The rules are simple, Arthur explained. Each of you will prepare a main course. The guests taste both dishes blind. The winner is chosen by vote. That's not fair, Luna said. She has an entire team. You may choose one assistant. Luna looked around. All the kitchen staff belonged to Elise's brigade. Then, in a far corner, she spotted a young man elbow deep in the dish sink. Him, she said, pointing. The young man looked up, startled. Me? I'm just a cleaning guy. What's your name? Miguel. You're my assistant now, Miguel. Elise laughed with elaborate contempt. Excellent choice. A dishwasher to assist a delivery girl. The challenge began. While Elise worked with surgical efficiency, directing her team in clipped French, Luna seemed uncertain at first. Miguel hovered anxiously at her side. What should I do? He asked. Luna closed her eyes for a moment, hearing her father's voice in memory. Cooking isn't about following recipes. It's about telling a story. I need olive oil, thyme, rosemary, and that filet, she said, pointing. Let's tell a story. As she worked, something in Luna shifted. Her movements grew fluid, intuitive, driven by muscle memory and something deeper than technique. Miguel watched her with quiet astonishment, following her instructions with increasing confidence. Across the kitchen, Elise noticed the change and said nothing, but her frown deepened. Guests drifted toward the kitchen entrance, curious. Arthur watched through the pass-through window, absorbed by the focus on Luna's face. Robert appeared at his shoulder. This is a mistake, Arthur. That girl is going to embarrass the company. We'll see. 2 dishes were presented to the judges. Elise's sophisticated French creation, precise and visually arresting, and Luna's offering, simpler in presentation, but releasing an aroma that quieted the room. Arthur tasted Luna's first. He closed his eyes. This reminds me of something familiar, he said softly. He tasted Elise's dish and nodded with genuine respect. The other guests followed in turn. Whispered exchanges circled the room. Sophia Meneses, moving through the guests, spotted Luna. That's the daughter of that criminal chef, she said, loudly enough for the tables nearby to hear. I wouldn't taste anything she made. How do we know she won't turn out like her father? A ripple of murmuring spread through the room. Eyes turned toward Luna. Every painstaking hour she had spent at that station threatened to dissolve. Arthur stepped toward Sophia, his expression pleasantly immovable. Mrs. Meneses, if you refuse to taste the dish, you're disqualified as a judge. He turned to survey the room. And if anyone here agrees with her, I'll withdraw my sponsorship from each of your projects. He smiled. Shall we continue? The room settled. The judging resumed. Luna stood still, hands trembling almost imperceptibly at her sides. Miguel leaned close. That dish was incredible, he whispered. I've never seen anyone cook like that. Arthur stepped to the small stage at the center of the room, a golden envelope in hand. His face revealed nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, the result of tonight's challenge was, I'll admit, surprising. Elise maintained her composed smile. Luna braced for defeat. By a margin of 3 votes, Arthur continued, the winner is Luna Oliveira. The room erupted. Elise's jaw unhinged. Sophia shot to her feet. There must be some mistake. The votes were counted twice. Mrs. Meneses, Arthur said evenly. The decision is final. Camera flashes burst across the hall. Luna was still blinking when Arthur guided her gently to the stage. As promised, $50,000 and a position at Leon Corporation. He handed her a check. Where her fingers closed around it, something broke open in her chest. Relief, grief, and gratitude all at once. This money, mother's medication, Pedro's school. Thank you, she managed, voice fracturing. Arthur smiled, and for the first time, it reached his eyes. You earned it. By the next morning, Luna's name was plastered across every news feed. Daughter of convicted chef defeats 3-star culinary legend. Delivery prodigy, from bicycle to elite table. Arthur Leong hires criminal's daughter. Strategy or madness? Luna sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through headlines while Helena held the check with trembling hands. 50,000, sweetheart, she murmured, as though she needed to say it aloud to believe it. That's a lot of money. Pedro launched off the couch. We're rich now. We could buy a new house. Luna smiled, exhaustion settling into every corner of her. It's not that much, but it'll help us get by for a while. Her phone buzzed. A message from Arthur. Office. 10 a.m. We need to talk. Before she could reply, the doorbell rang. A man in a pressed suit stood on the step, microphone already extended. Luna Oliveira. I'm a reporter from the National Daily. Would you like to comment on the accusations that you followed in your father's criminal footsteps to win the contest? Luna went cold. What? Behind him, a second van pulled up. More reporters piled out, cameras raised. Is it true your father taught you poisoning techniques before he died? How does it feel to work for the company your father planned to sabotage? The questions hammered her from every direction. She stepped back and closed the door hard. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Someone was doing to her exactly what had been done to her father. At Leon Corp, Arthur watched the sensationalist broadcast with narrowed eyes. This is nonsense, he muttered. Who planted this story? Zhao entered, tablet in hand. Sir, the board is calling for an emergency meeting. They want you to fire Luna immediately. And Victor Meneses? What's his move? He gave an exclusive interview. He's claiming you're putting company employees at risk by hiring someone with, his words, criminal DNA. Arthur switched off the television with a decisive click. Set up the meeting, and pull everything you can find on her father's case. When Luna finally made it to the building, she was greeted by sidelong glances and barely concealed whispers. At reception, a different secretary sat behind the desk. "Mr. Leong is in a meeting. Please wait." Luna sat on the lobby couch. A nearby screen ran a live interview with a silver-haired man whose measured, paternal delivery made everything he said sound reasonable. "I fear for the safety of everyone at Leon Corp," said Victor Meneses, looking directly into the camera. "Carlos Oliveira was unstable and dangerous. He nearly poisoned 15 people, including me. Who's to say his daughter didn't inherit that tendency?" Luna felt the chill move through her like cold water. Victor Meneses, the man who had destroyed her father, was now coming for her. The conference room doors swung open. Executives filed out, faces tight. Robert passed her without stopping. "Happy now? The company just lost 3 contracts because of you." Arthur was the last out. His expression was unreadable. "Luna, my office." The elevator ride up was the longest of her life. Once inside, Arthur closed the door and exhaled, the first unguarded sound she had ever heard from him. "We need to talk about your father. If you believe those lies." "I don't," Arthur said, "but I need to know the truth. All of it." Luna's eyes stung. She swallowed. "My father was the head chef at Le Jardin, the most prestigious restaurant in the city. Victor Meneses owned it." Arthur sat and gestured for her to do the same. "Dad created a menu that earned awards, international attention, critical acclaim. Then he decided he wanted to open his own place. When he told Victor, she steadied herself. The following week, 15 customers fell ill. Traces of poison were found in the desserts. My father was arrested the same day. Did he deny it? Until the very end. He said someone had framed him, but all the evidence pointed his way." She stopped. The words always came harder here. 2 weeks later, they found him. Her voice broke. In his cell. He had hanged himself. Arthur opened the folder on the desk. "We found something." The autopsies of the affected customers showed inconsistencies. The poison identified in the report wouldn't have produced the symptoms that were recorded. Luna's breath caught. "What?" "Someone tampered with the evidence." The door exploded open. Sophia Meneses swept in, flanked by security and a news crew. "Arthur Leon," she announced theatrically. "How dare you protect someone like her?" Arthur was on his feet immediately. "Who let you in?" "My husband holds major shares in 3 of your suppliers," Sophia said, mouth curving into a razor smile. "They want answers." She swung toward Luna, and the cameras followed. "That woman is the daughter of a murderer, and now she's using the same methods her father used." "That's enough," Arthur said, voice dropped to something quiet and absolute. He signaled to the guards. "Get everyone out. Now." As Sophia was escorted through the door, she called back over her shoulder, "You'll regret standing up for that girl, Arthur. The board is already voting you out." Silence fell hard and sudden. Luna was shaking. "I should go," she said quietly. "I'm ruining your reputation." Arthur stood at the window, looking down at the city. A long moment passed. "Do you know why I was drawn to you, Luna?" She shook her head. "Because we're alike." He turned to face her, and his expression held something she hadn't seen before. Not calculation, not authority, but something rawer. "We both know what injustice feels like." He looked directly at her. "We are going to clear your father's name and find out who really poisoned those people." Luna stared at him. "Why? Why do you care?" He stepped closer, close enough that she had to look up. "Because I know the truth when I see it." Rain beat down in heavy curtains as Arthur's limousine squeezed through the narrow street outside Luna's house, drawing curtains aside in the windows of neighboring homes. "Are you sure about this?" Luna asked, hesitant. "You could drop me off here. You don't need to come in." Arthur surveyed the modest row of houses, the flaking paint, the tangle of electrical wires overhead. "Are you ashamed of where you live?" "No," she said firmly. "I'm proud of my home. I just think You might not be comfortable here. He tilted his head slightly. You assume I was born with a silver spoon, don't you? Before she could answer, the driver opened the door and Arthur stepped into the rain as though weather were a minor inconvenience. Luna hurried after him. Inside, Pedro was sprawled on the worn couch watching television. He looked up, then froze, then stared. It's the rich guy from TV. Pedro, Luna said, but Arthur was already laughing. You must be Luna's brother. I'm Arthur. Do you really have a helicopter? Pedro demanded. I actually have too. Wow. The boy's eyes went planetary. Can you take me for a ride one day? Pedro. Luna stepped between them. Go check on Mom. Go on. Pedro retreated reluctantly, glancing back every few steps. Luna pressed her fingers to her temples. Sorry about that. He reminds me of myself at 12, Arthur said simply, studying the photographs on the wall. He paused at one. Carlos Oliveira beaming beside a lavishly plated dish. Your father. The day he won Chef of the Year, Luna said. 6 months before everything happened. A soft cough sounded from the next room. Luna tensed. My mom. She's not having a good day. Arthur followed her to a small bedroom where Helena lay propped against pillows, pale and visibly fragile. Her eyes went wide when she saw the stranger beside her daughter. Mom, this is Arthur Leon. Luna paused, uncertain how to finish. Friend, Arthur said, extending his hand. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Oliveira. Helena took his hand carefully, still surprised. What brings a man like you to our home? Arthur pulled the chair close to the bed and sat. Your daughter. She's extraordinary. Helena's face softened with quiet pride. She always has been, just like her father. Speaking of which, we're looking into his case, Arthur explained. I believe your husband was the victim of a setup. Helena's eyes filled. No one ever believed us. Carlos would never do such a thing. Never. Luna slipped out to get water and returned to find her mother and Arthur talking like old acquaintances, Helena's hands more animated than they'd been in months. He always said food is a universal language, she was telling him. If you really want to know someone, eat what they cook. Arthur listened with genuine attention, asking questions, leaning in. The rain outside thickened into a full storm. Looks like you'll be stuck here for a while, Luna said, glancing at the window. Don't worry about me, Arthur replied. I've seen worse storms. After Helena dozed off, Luna led him into the kitchen and opened the modest refrigerator. We don't have much, but I can make something. Let me help, Arthur offered. He shed his expensive jacket, rolled up his sleeves, and moved into the space beside her. Luna stared at him. You know how to cook? Let's just say I can manage. She watched in growing disbelief as he chopped vegetables with clean, confident strokes and measured spices by feel. Where did you learn to cook like that? That private smile again. I wasn't always a CEO. Before Leon Corp, I spent 3 years as a kitchen assistant in Taiwan. Luna lowered her knife. You never told me that. You never asked. Side by side in the small kitchen, they prepared a simple, fragrant meal. The aroma pulled Pedro in from the other room like a thread. As they ate, Arthur was more at ease than Luna had ever seen him, laughing with Pedro about video games, answering every outrageous question about cars and helicopters with patient good humor. Why did you choose Luna to work with you? Pedro asked at some point between bites. Arthur glanced at Luna before answering. Because she sees solutions where others only see problems. Warmth climbed quietly into Luna's face. After dinner, Pedro cajoled Arthur into makeshift chess using bottle caps for missing pieces. Luna watched from the doorway as Arthur, with theatrical distress, allowed a 12-year-old to capture his king. You're a natural strategist, kid, Arthur told him, genuinely impressed. You should consider a career in business. Something shifted in Luna's chest at the sight of it. Arthur Leong, usually encased in authority and control, laughing easily with her little brother in her family's cramped kitchen. The storm finally eased around midnight. Arthur checked his phone, buzzing steadily with notifications, then put it face down. Trouble. Luna asked. Nothing that can't wait until morning. He stood. But it's late. I should go. At the door, he turned back. Thank for dinner. It was different. Luna smiled. Different good or different bad? Definitely good, he said, and held her gaze a beat longer than necessary. When the door closed behind him, Luna leaned against it and felt her pulse doing something it had no business doing. You like him, Pedro announced, materializing in the hallway. What? Don't be ridiculous, Luna said. Her cheeks said otherwise. Luna and Arthur, sitting in a tree, Pedro dissolved in a song before a pillow connected with the back of his head. The next morning, Luna was woken by her phone. A message from Arthur. Turn on the TV. Now, Pedro was already in the living room, staring at the screen with his mouth open. A news anchor delivered the latest with barely disguised relish. Leon Corp CEO Arthur Leong was seen last night in a low-income neighborhood, having dinner at the home of controversial figure Luna Oliveira. Board sources confirm shareholders are furious about the executive's personal involvement. The broadcast cut to Victor Meneses. I'm deeply concerned about Leon's erratic behavior. Then to Sophia. It's obvious she's using the same manipulative tactics as her father. First, he poisoned customers. Now she's poisoned the mind of one of the most powerful businessmen in the country. Luna's blood ran cold. In other news, cooking show Star Gastronomy has announced Luna Oliveira as a special guest on its next episode. Her phone rang. Arthur, did you see it? I did, Luna said. This could ruin your reputation. I don't care about that, he said. But we need to be careful. The TV show, it's a trap. How do you know? Victor Meneses is the show's main sponsor. He wants to humiliate you publicly. Luna closed her eyes, drew a slow breath. So that's what he wants. A pause. Fine. I'll go on the show, and I'll prove that the Oliveiras are not what they say we are. On the other end of the line, she heard something that might, for the first time, have been a smile. That's exactly what I hoped you'd say. The Star Gastronomy studios blazed under studio lights. Crew members threaded between contestants. Makeup artists made final corrections, and the audience shuffled into the stands with the eager energy of people who had come to watch something burn. The show was the most-watched culinary program in the country, celebrated equally for its brutal challenges and its even more brutal judges. Luna waited backstage, consciously steadying her breathing. Arthur had tried one last time to talk her out of it. It's the only way to clear our name, she had told him. 5 minutes, a producer called. The other contestants, seasoned chefs, past finalists, looked at Luna as though she were an uninvited guest at a private party. Nervous, criminal's daughter, a blonde contestant murmured. I heard poisoning people runs in the family. Luna kept her eyes forward. She heard her father's voice in her head, steady and warm. In the kitchen, it doesn't matter who you are, only what you create. The lights dropped. The theme swelled. The host, Cesar Montero, glided onto the stage. Good evening. Tonight, we have a special edition of Star Gastronomy, featuring the most controversial contestant in the show's history. The audience roared. Luna Vrith. And here are our judges. Cesar announced. Chef Philippe Dubois, Renata Mendonça, and our special guest, Victor Meneses. Luna felt the cold move through her in a single wave. Victor sat at the judges' table, smiling the way a predator smiles, satisfied in advance. When the contestants filed in and the cameras swept to Luna, the audience greeted her with a cascade of boos and a smattering of defiant applause. Handmade banners reading Poison Family outwaved from the upper rows. Luna Oliveira, Cesar Intonet, daughter of the infamous chef Carlos Oliveira, who nearly poisoned 15 people. How does it feel to be here? I came here to cook, Luna said, not to talk about the past. Oh, but the past always finds a way to haunt us, doesn't it? Cesar turned conspiratorially to the cameras. Victor leaned toward his microphone. I'm surprised by your courage, Miss Oliveira, especially considering your family history. Luna fixed her attention on her workstation and held it there. Today's challenge, Cesar announced. is to create a signature dish in 60 minutes. The winner earns immunity. The worst dish results in immediate elimination. The stations were revealed. Luna's was visibly inferior to the others. Dull knives, scarred pans, a stove that looked as though it had survived a different decade. Her first trap. Let the flames begin. The clock started. Luna moved quickly. She had planned for wild mushroom risotto with red wine reduction, one of her father's most cherished creations. When she opened the arborio rice, she found plain rice instead. Wrong variety entirely. First trap, she registered, already pivoting. She would adapt. A different technique. The method her father called forgiving. 45 minutes remaining. The cameras orbited her constantly. The judges approached, observing with folded arms. Your technique is interesting, Philippe commented, with the thinly veiled dismissiveness of someone who had decided in advance. Did you learn that from your father? Yes, Luna said. He was a great chef, no matter what people say. Victor laughed softly. A great chef? He couldn't tell the difference between spices and poison. As it turned out, the cameras captured every word. Luna's face gurned. Her hands kept moving. When she reached for the food processor, it ground for half a second and died. Second trap. She picked up a knife and began chopping by hand. 20 minutes remaining. She noticed the stove wasn't heating properly. The water barely simmered. She switched to the oven. It seemed better. She adjusted her approach a third time, rebuilding the recipe in her mind on the fly. 15 minutes. She opened the oven to check the dish. A wall of smoke rolled out. Someone had turned the temperature to maximum. The rice was char-black. The audience burst into laughter. Looks like we've got a little kitchen fire over here, Caesar narrated, sliding closer with a microphone. Luna's eyes stung, not from the smoke. 3 traps, carefully orchestrated. Her best work systematically destroyed on national television. She looked at the clock. 12 minutes. She heard her father's voice again, the one he used in the worst moments. A real chef doesn't see ingredients. They see possibilities. Luna looked at what remained. A collection of vegetables. Herbs. The side dish components she hadn't touched. Not what she planned, but something. Working silently, blocking the noise entirely. Luna remembered a technique her father reserved for genuine emergencies. When all seems lost, go back to the basics. Find the purest flavor. She moved fast and focused, constructing a vegetable tartare with fresh herbs and a careful arrangement of spices, a minimalist presentation technique Carlos had used only at competition level. 5 minutes. Caesar called. Victor settled back in his chair, satisfied. The Oliveira girl would be publicly destroyed, just as he had destroyed the father. Poetic, he thought. Time's up. Knives down. The audience applauded. The cameras swept each station before landing on Luna's spare, precise creation. Judging began. The other contestants were praised with generous enthusiasm. When Luna's turn came, the room quieted. Victor tasted first, expression theatrical with skepticism. It's edible, but completely unfit for this competition. Philippe next. Basic technique. No creativity. Disappointing. Luna absorbed it without flinching. Renato was last. She tasted slowly, thoughtfully. Something crossed her face, not the practiced critical expression, but something real. There's something familiar about this dish, she murmured. It reminds me of a failure, Victor said, cutting across her. Like father, like daughter. The audience reacted with the ugly enthusiasm of people watching someone drown. The studio doors swung open. Arthur Leung walked in. He moved down the aisle with his team of lawyers flanking him, as calm as if he owned the air in the room, which, given his recent statements to the board, he practically did. Sorry for the interruption, he said, reaching the stage without haste. I couldn't miss this performance. A wave of sound passed through the audience. Every camera pivoted. Mr. Leung, Caesar stammered. What a surprise. You came to watch. I came to clarify something. Arthur addressed the judges' table directly. If Luna Oliveira loses this competition, Leon Corp will immediately cancel its $50 million sponsorship of this show. Stone silence. This is blackmail, Victor managed. This is business, Arthur said pleasantly. I suggest you taste her dish again, with an open mind this time. The judges exchanged glances. Renata was the first to reach for her fork. The herbs, she said softly, eyes closing. This combination, it's Carlos Oliveira's signature. I recognize it now. Philippe tasted again, grudgingly. There's balance here. The simplicity conceals a layered complexity of flavors. Victor refused. He was outvoted. 2 votes to 1. Luna won. The audience, confused, then curious, then caught up, began to applaud. Luna, eyes burning, could not quite process what had happened. As she made her way off the stage, she found Arthur waiting. Thank you, she said quietly. But you didn't have to. I did, he said. What happened here was disgraceful. I only won because of your threat. Arthur held her gaze. You won because you're outstanding, even against an obvious setup. The fact that they had to sabotage you, that thoroughly only shows how much they fear you. A single tear traced down Luna's cheek. Will my father be proud? Arthur smiled, gently. I'm certain he already is. The morning after the broadcast, Arthur was already at his desk when the calls began. Shareholders, board members, press inquiries. He ignored them all and opened a red folder Zhao had placed in front of him. Forensic reports, expert analysis, testimony transcripts, everything connected to the Carlos Oliveira case. Sir, Zhao said, entering quietly. We found something. Arthur looked up. The Oliveira case? Yes. The laboratory that conducted the original toxicology tests closed 2 years ago, but we accessed their archive files. Zhao set the folder on the desk. The original samples from the affected clients are gone. No records. Nothing. Convenient, Arthur murmured, turning pages. There's more. The lead investigator, Detective Ribeiro, requested a transfer 1 week after Carlos Oliveira died. He purchased a property in Portugal and never returned. Arthur stood. Bribery. It appears so. And one more thing. A pause. The judge who presided over the case is Victor Meneses' second cousin. Arthur brought his fist down on the desk. Find that detective. I want him here as soon as possible. Sir, that's going to cost. I don't care what it costs. Make it happen. Zhao nodded and left. Arthur turned back to the photograph in the file. Carlos Oliveira, handcuffed, being led to a waiting car. Those eyes, steady, bewildered, and holding a quiet dignity that no amount of manufactured evidence could erase. The same expression he now saw in Luna every time she talked about her father. The intercom clicked. Mr. Leon, the board is assembled in the conference room. They're requesting your immediate presence. Arthur straightened his tie, picked up the folder, walked out. Luna moved through downtown with her hood pulled up. In the weeks since the TV broadcast, public recognition had become part of her daily life, sometimes warm, often not. Poisoner's daughter, she had been called twice this week. She had also been stopped for selfies 3 times. Her phone buzzed. A message from Arthur. In the board meeting now. We'll update you soon. Stay alert. She smiled before she could stop herself. Over the past weeks, Arthur had become a constant, difficult to name, impossible to ignore. Boss. Friend. Something else she hadn't yet found the right word for. She slipped into a quiet cafe, ordered a coffee, and opened her laptop. Arthur had given her access to Leon Corp's financial archives as part of the investigation. She was tracing every thread she could find connecting Victor Meneses to her father's downfall. It's you, isn't it? A woman at the next table was watching her, older, eyes kind. From the cooking show. I knew your father, the woman continued. He was a regular at Le Jardin. A lovely man. I never believed that poisoning story for a moment. Carlos wasn't capable of that. Luna's throat tightened. Thank you. That means a lot. What they're doing to you is the same thing they did to him, the woman said, voice dropping. Be careful with the Meneses family. They destroy anyone who threatens their business. Before Luna could respond, the woman gathered her things and left. Luna sat with her coffee, thinking. Back at the financial records, she pulled up Le Jardin's revenue figures from the period before the incident. Under her father's leadership, the restaurant had tripled its income. Weeks before the poisoning, he had turned down a partnership offer from Victor Meneses, choosing instead to open his own establishment. Classic motive, she thought. Money. Her phone buzzed. A news alert. Leon Court Board votes to suspend Arthur Leong following scandal involving criminal's daughter. Luna's stomach dropped. Arthur was dismantling his own career for her. The boardroom atmosphere was arctic. 12 executives in expensive suits regarded Arthur with expressions arranged along a spectrum from censure to barely disguised fury. Robert Davis raised the gavel. This emergency session addresses the recent conduct of our CEO, which has materially compromised the company's standing and financial stability. Robert scanned the room. Since Mr. Leong chose to involve himself personally with Miss Oliveira, we have lost 3 international contracts. Our stock has declined 7%. The press is questioning his judgment. Shareholders are demanding action. A pause. We therefore propose the temporary suspension of Arthur Leong from the position of CEO until this situation is resolved. Arthur stood. Ladies and gentlemen, I understand your concerns, he said, his voice measured, but what we're dealing with goes far beyond market fluctuations. He spread the documents from the red folder across the length of the table. These are records from the original investigation into Carlos Oliveira. They are riddled with inconsistencies, missing evidence, and documented conflicts of interest. He looked directly at Robert. We believe Victor Meneses orchestrated the entire thing. That's absurd, a female board member said immediately. Victor is one of the most respected businessmen in the country. He's also one of our major investors, another added. These accusations are extremely serious, Arthur. They are, Arthur agreed, and they're backed by documentation. The presiding judge was Meneses's second cousin. The lead detective vanished to Europe with an unexplained fortune immediately after Carlos Oliveira's death. The toxicology samples were never properly verified. Robert removed his glasses and pinched the bridge of his nose. Even if that's all true, what does it have to do with this company? Everything. Arthur leaned forward, both palms on the table. Because Victor Meneses has been attempting to seize control of Leon Corp for years. Luna Oliveira simply gave him the opening he needed to push me out. A long, uneasy silence held the room. I'm not only defending Luna Oliveira or her father's memory, Arthur said. I am protecting this company from a corporate predator. Robert looked at his colleagues. Back at Arthur. We need concrete evidence, not theories. Give me 2 weeks, Arthur said. If I can't present solid proof by then, I'll resign voluntarily. After a prolonged and tense deliberation, the board agreed to postpone the vote. Arthur left the conference room hollowed out but certain. In the corridor, Zhao fell on a step beside him. We located Detective Ribeiro. He's living under an assumed name in Lisbon. Get the jet ready. We leave tomorrow. Sir, there's something else. Zhao hesitated in a way that wasn't like him. We've received intelligence that Luna Oliveira may be in danger. Online threats have been escalating, and our sources indicate that Victor Meneses has hired someone to intimidate her. Arthur was already dialing her number. 1 ring. 2. 3. No answer. Find her, he said. Now. Luna left the cafe with a heavy feeling between her shoulder blades, like eyes she couldn't locate. The sky was bruising with an approaching storm. The streets were oddly empty. She quickened her pace, folder of documents tucked under her arm. Halfway down a deserted side street, she became certain of the footsteps behind her. She crossed to the other side, and a black car surged from a gap between parked vehicles, cutting off the road ahead. The door opened. Poisoner's daughter. A hooded figure dropped out of the car. A second appeared behind her. She was boxed in. The Meneses family sends their regards, said the one at her back, closing the distance. Luna gripped the strap of her bag, cataloging her options. The first man lunged. She dodged, but the second grabbed her from behind, pinning both arms. "Help!" she screamed, twisting against his grip. Tires screamed on the wet pavement. A third car skidded to a halt. Arthur came out like a storm breaking, two security guards right behind him. "Let her go," he said, his voice dropping through the temperature. "Now." The men hesitated, which was all Luna needed. She drove her elbow into the stomach of the man holding her and broke free. "Arthur," she ran to him without thinking about it. The two men bolted back to their car and were gone within seconds, swallowed by the darkening street. Luna was shaking in his arms, the adrenaline still crashing through her. "How did you find me?" she managed. "We track your phone," Arthur said, holding her close. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head against his shoulder. She felt, strangely, entirely safe. "I am okay, just scared." He cupped her face in both hands and studied her with an intensity that had nothing clinical in it anymore. "This is just the beginning. They're desperate now. Did you learn anything from the board?" "I bought us 2 weeks." He was still holding her face. His expression had shifted into something she hadn't seen before. "I'm going to Lisbon tomorrow. The detective who arrested your father is there. I'm coming with you. It's dangerous. More dangerous than staying here." The ghost of a smile appeared on her lips. The sky released the rain it had been holding all afternoon, cold and immediate. Arthur looked at her, water running down his face, neither of them moving toward shelter. Something fell away between them in that moment, a distance that had been carefully maintained, that neither of them had formally acknowledged. He leaned in slowly, almost tentatively, as if asking a question he wasn't sure he had the right to ask. She answered by meeting him halfway. The kiss was quiet and gentle and felt like something that had been waiting a long time to happen. When they drew apart, both breathless in a way that had nothing to do with the chase, he pressed his forehead lightly to hers. "We have to go," he whispered. "It's not safe here." Neither of them moved immediately. From the shadows across the street, obscured by the rain, someone watched. A camera shatter clicked. 3 days of silence. 3 days since Arthur had flown to Lisbon in pursuit of Detective Ribeiro. 3 days in which Luna had oscillated between cautious hope and quiet dread. The safe apartment Arthur had arranged for her family was generous to the point of being surreal, but it felt like a beautiful cage. Curtains drawn, guard posted. Luna's phone pulsed continuously with notifications she forced herself not to read. Oliveira heiress in hiding after scandal. CEO and criminal's daughter. Business or pleasure? Victor Menezes sues Leon Corp for defamation. She turned the phone face down. Helena sat near the covered window, quiet worry written across her face. Still no word from him? Zhao says they're staying quiet for safety. The detective is apparently difficult to locate. Pedro came sprinting into the room and switched on the enormous television. "Luna, you need to see this." The screen showed Leon Corp headquarters ringed with reporters. The headline made her breath stop. Arthur Leong missing for 72 hours. The reporter spoke with barely contained excitement. Inside sources confirm that Arthur Leong has not been seen since boarding his private jet to Lisbon 3 days ago. The board has called an emergency meeting this afternoon. Board Chairman Robert Davis released a statement describing the CEO's absence as deeply concerning and confirms that steps are being taken to ensure the company's stability during this turbulent period. The screen cut to Victor Menezes stepping out of a restaurant, a forest of microphones before him. "It's a tragedy," he said, with the convincing sorrow of someone who has practiced it, to see a company like Leon Corp destabilized by a scandal of this nature. "I have always warned about the risks of associating with the Oliveira family." "Liar," Luna said aloud. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. "Luna." Arthur's voice, distant, clipped with interference. "Don't talk. Just listen." She held her breath. "I found Ribeiro. He confessed everything. He was paid to plant evidence against your father. I'm coming back today with proof. But static swallowed the rest. The call dropped. Luna hit redial. The number wouldn't connect. What happened? Helena asked. It was him. He found the proof. He's coming back. Pedro celebrated loudly from the couch, but Luna couldn't join him. Something in Arthur's voice had been wrong. Not the words, the weight behind them. He had sounded like someone who knew they were being watched. She checked her phone at 4:37 a.m. A notification. Arthur Liang's jet lands at private airport. She fell asleep within minutes, the phone still in her hand. Urgent knocking woke her what felt like moments later. Luna. Pedro's voice through the door choked. Come see the TV. Hurry. She ran. Helena was already in the living room, hands over her mouth. The screen showed live footage from outside Leon Corporation paramedics. A stretcher. The headline, Leon Corp's CEO attacked at company headquarters. No, Luna Guispert. Arthur Leon was found unconscious in his office this morning by arriving staff members, the reporter said. Witnesses report signs of a violent assault. Police are investigating potential connections to the ongoing controversies surrounding the company. Hospital sources describe his condition as serious but stable. Luna was already pulling on her coat. I have to go to the hospital. Now. Sweetheart, it's too dangerous. Helena reached for her arm. Whoever attacked him. I don't care. She grabbed her keys. Stay here. The guards will keep you safe. Her phone rang in the elevator. Zhao, don't go to the hospital, he said immediately. Reporters are everywhere. It's not safe. How is he? Stable. 2 broken ribs, a concussion, deep laceration on his arm. But Zhao paused. He left something for you before the attack. I'm sending a driver. Meet me at the company warehouse in 30 minutes. Luna bit her lip, torn between the pull toward Arthur and whatever he had prepared. I'll be there. The Leon Corp warehouse sat in a gray industrial quarter, nondescript and easily overlooked. Exactly the point. Zhao was waiting at a side door, scanning the empty street. Quick, he said. Inside, between dusty stacked crates and dormant equipment, Zhao led her to a small office tucked against the far wall. On the table, a black folder and a flash drive. Arthur left instructions to give you this if anything ever happened to him. Luna opened the folder with hands that weren't quite steady. Inside was a signed confession. Eduardo Ribeiro, the detective who had investigated her father's case. The document described, in specific and damning detail, how Victor Meneses had paid $2 million to have Ribeiro falsify evidence, contaminate the samples, and accelerate the prosecution. Oh my God, Luna breathed. Tears ran without permission. This clears my father's name. There's more, Zhao said, sliding the flash drive into a laptop. Recordings of Arthur's conversations with Ribeiro in Lisbon. And he hesitated. Arthur suspected they were being watched the entire time. That's why he set this up separately, before going back. Luna watched the footage with a grief she hadn't anticipated. Ribeiro, middle-aged, visibly nervous, confessed in precise detail. How Victor had planned each step. How Carlos Oliveira had been specifically targeted for threatening the Meneses culinary empire. How a man who only wanted to cook had been made into a monster so that a more powerful man could sleep easily. Why did Victor attack Arthur now? Luna asked, voice barely above a whisper. Desperation. He found out Arthur had the evidence. He tried to prevent it from going public. Zhao looked at the table. This time he hired professionals. If the security guard hadn't arrived early. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. We have to go to the police. Copies have already been sent to the authorities and to the press. Arthur planned for this outcome. A slight, proud smile crossed Zhao's face. He knew the mission was dangerous, so he built a safety net before he went in. Luna's phone erupted with notifications. Businessman Victor Meneses accused of conspiracy. Carlos Oliveira was innocent. The truth finally revealed. Evidence of deliberate frame-up surfaces in landmark case. I need to see Arthur, she said. Zhao nodded. The driver will take you through the back entrance. In the car, Luna held the folder against her chest like something sacred. 3 years of pain and shame and silence. And now this. Her father had been vindicated, his name restored. But Arthur was lying in a hospital bed because he had made it happen. A doctor walked her through quiet hallways to a private wing. Security stood at the door. Inside, Arthur lay in the hospital bed, monitors blinking softly, his arm bandaged, bruises mapping his face. He looked different this way. Smaller, somehow. More human than she had ever seen him. Luna crossed the room and gently took the hand that wasn't attached to the fore. "You did it," she whispered. "You cleared my father's name." His eyes opened slowly. A faint, lopsided smile appeared through the bruises. "Luna, don't try to talk," she said, her hand moving to his face. "You need to rest." "The final," he said with visible effort. "Luna Fronith." "What?" "The national cooking competition." He looked at her steadily. "I signed you up. Victor is the main sponsor. You have to go. Show everyone who you really are." His eyes closed again. "Luna stud moschenlis." The national culinary competition, the most prestigious event in the country. Winning would do more than any press release, any legal document, any headline. It would be the last word. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. "Congratulations on the vindication, Miss Oliveira. But this isn't over. I'll see you at the competition final. I want to see if you can cook as well as your father before I destroy you the way I destroyed him." VM. Luna looked at Arthur, sleeping now, still and pale in the hospital bed. She leaned down and pressed her lips softly to his forehead. "I'll go," she whispered, "and I'll win. For you. For my father. For all of us." As she left through the building's rear exit, cameras caught her anyway, a handful of photographers who had staked out the entrances. This time, she didn't run. "Miss Oliveira, what do you say about the accusations against Victor Meneses? How did it feel to learn your father was innocent? Will you compete in the final?" Luna stopped. She lifted her chin. "My father, Carlos Oliveira, was the victim of a criminal conspiracy," she said clearly. Today, his name was finally cleared. Her voice gathered strength. "And yes, I will compete in the national culinary competition. You can tell Victor Meneses I'll be there, ready to show the world what my father's legacy truly means." She got into the waiting car. The final battle was just beginning. The days before the national culinary competition moved in a blur. Carlos Oliveira's story dominated every platform. Innocent chef, the Meneses conspiracy, justice at last. The public prosecutor's office officially reopened the case. Victor Meneses was summoned to testify. Sophia, who had been abroad since her husband's legal troubles began, remained conspicuously absent. The Meneses empire was visibly buckling. Luna divided her days between rigorous kitchen training and hospital visits. Arthur was recovering steadily, still too weak to leave, but sharp enough to coach her from his bed. "You need to perfect the reduction technique," he said, watching her work in the makeshift kitchen they had set up in the safe house. "Your father was exceptional at it." Luna smiled without looking up from the pan. "How do you know so much about culinary technique?" 3 years in a Taiwanese kitchen, remember? "I trained under a Michelin-starred chef." Pedro burst in from the other room, waving a tablet. "Luna, look at this." The screen showed Victor Meneses leaving a police precinct, surrounded by microphones, his once commanding presence now thinned to something hollow. Dark circles, a cornered look behind the eyes. Victor Meneses was indicted today on charges of obstruction of justice, bribery of public officials, and attempted murder. The businessman denied all charges and was released on bail. "Are they going to arrest him?" Pedro asked. "Eventually," Arthur replied. "But first, he'll face public disgrace. For someone like Victor, that's worse than prison." Luna turned off the stove, thinking, he'll still be at the competition. As main sponsor, he can't be removed. "Which is exactly why you have to win," Arthur said, taking her hand. "It will be the final blow. The day before the contest, an unexpected visitor arrived. Miguel, the young dishwasher who had been her unlikely assistant in the cooking challenge, stood at her door, somewhat bashful. "I came to offer my help," he said. "I know I'm not a professional chef, but—" Luna pulled him into a hug before he could finish. "You're exactly who I need." That night, organizing her equipment, Luna discovered something tucked at the bottom of her knife bag that she hadn't put there. Her father's recipe notebook. She opened it carefully, fingers moving over the handwritten annotations, the margin sketches, the small corrections he had made in pencil over ink. On the final page, in handwriting she would know anywhere, was something she had never seen. "For my Luna, who will one day shine brighter than all the stars in the culinary world. The secret isn't in the ingredients. It's in the love we put into every dish." "Dad." The tears came without any warning. She kissed the worn corner of the page. "I'll make you proud, Dad," she whispered. The convention center hummed with anticipation the morning of the final round. 8 finalists, celebrated chefs, internationally trained, restaurateurs with years of critical acclaim, and Luna, the outsider. Some commentators had taken to calling her the daughter of the rehabilitated chef, as though they needed a category for her and couldn't find one that fit. Cameras tracked every corner of the venue. The event would broadcast live, nationally. Luna and Miguel were arranging their station when Arthur arrived, leaning slightly on a cane, but dressed sharply in a charcoal suit, looking like a man who had decided the hospital was someone else's idea. "You're supposed to be resting," Luna said. "And miss your big moment?" "Absolutely not." Their eyes held for a moment longer than necessary. A whole conversation in the space of a look. Promises and the suggestion of everything still ahead once the storm had finally passed. The host called the contestants to center stage. "Today's theme," he announced, "is reinvention. A classic dish, transformed with your personal voice." Luna felt the theme land somewhere deep. It was as though her father had whispered it from above. "Contestants, to your stations. 3 hours. May the best chef win." The audience applauded. From the VIP mezzanine, Victor Meneses watched over a glass of champagne, composed in the way of a man who believes the outcome is already decided. Luna moved. She had chosen to reinvent her father's most celebrated creation, sea and earth. Perfectly seared scallops over a wine reduction infused with proprietary spice combinations, balanced against earthy, contrasting elements that created a tension and harmony that had made critics lose their usual composure. The judges circulated between stations. When they reached Luna's, they lingered. "Your father was known for this dish," said Patricia Nerona, one of the most respected voices in the country's culinary world. "Are you trying to recreate his legacy?" "I'm honoring his memory," Luna answered without pausing her knife work, "but creating my own version. My father taught me that cooking means respecting what came before you and finding your own voice within it." Patricia's eyebrows rose slightly in the way of someone who had not expected to be impressed. A wise philosophy. Up in the mezzanine, Victor set his champagne down and signaled an event organizer, speaking in a low, tight voice. Helena and Pedro sat in the front row beside Arthur. Pedro could not hold still, cycling between boundless excitement and nail-biting. "She's going to make it, right?" he asked Arthur for the 10th time. "She will," Arthur said, with a kind of certainty that came from somewhere it didn't need to defend. In the competition's final hour, a production assistant approached Luna's station and whispered quickly in her ear. The color left her face. "What was that?" Miguel asked, alarmed. "Victor has requested a last-minute change," Luna said quietly, adjusting the oven without breaking her rhythm. "The judges will now pose questions about advanced molecular gastronomy techniques, something not included in the original format." "He can't do that. He's the main sponsor." Miguel looked like he wanted to overturn the station. Luna calmed him with a look. "It's fine. My father was fascinated by culinary science. I've spent weeks in his notes." When the gong sounded to end the cooking round, 8 dishes stood ready for judgment. Luna looked at what she had made with a complex feeling in her chest. pride, and uncertainty woven together. It was not her father's dish. It was something that had grown from his roots, but reached in its own direction, shaped by every difficult, beautiful thing she had lived. The judges moved deliberately through the room, tasting, conferring, making notes. Victor watched with the settled confidence of someone who had already written the ending. After a period of deliberation that felt designed to test the heart rate of everyone present, the host returned to the stage with a sealed golden envelope. "Before I announce the winner," he said, "we have a special announcement." The room stilled. The National Culinary Council has voted to posthumously restore all honors and awards previously granted to Carlos Oliveira, recognizing in full the injustice done to this extraordinary chef. The audience rose. Helena covered her face. Pedro grabbed her hand. Luna felt her knees weaken. And the winner of this year's National Culinary Competition is... Every sound in the room disappeared. Arthur stopped breathing. Victor leaned over the mezzanine railing. Luna Oliveira, for her extraordinary reinvention of sea and earth. The applause was a living thing, filling the room from floor to ceiling. Miguel grabbed her, laughing. Helena was crying in the front row, openly and without any attempt to stop herself. Pedro was on his feet, screaming something that was probably a word. Arthur watched from his seat with tears tracking quietly down his face and an expression of absolute, uncomplicated pride. Victor Meneses threw his champagne glass against the railing and pushed through the crowd toward the exit, past cameras and security, and a room that no longer had any use for him. Luna walked to the stage as if moving through water, everything slowing, softening, taking on the quality of something she would remember in detail for the rest of her life. "We did it, Dad," she thought, lifting the trophy. "We did it." Justice, at last, had been served on a perfectly executed plate. 6 months after the competition final, Luna's life bore almost no resemblance to the one she had known. The small apartment she had shared with Helena and Pedro was replaced by a spacious house in a quiet neighborhood, with a garden for Helena and a proper room for Pedro, who had enrolled in a private school where his mathematical talent was being taken seriously for the first time. Helena was receiving comprehensive medical care, and her health, slowly but unmistakably, was improving. The deepest change was in Luna herself. The delivery girl who had once moved invisibly through the city was now a respected and genuinely celebrated chef. With Arthur's backing, she had opened Oliveira, a restaurant that earned its first star in the food guide within 4 months of opening. On this particular sunny Saturday morning, she was overseeing the final preparations for the most important event of her life. "The flowers need to be taller in the center," she told the staff working to transform the main dining room. "And don't light the scented candles until 30 minutes before the guests arrive." Miguel, now her official sous chef, appeared at her elbow with a clipboard. "The appetizers are ready for your inspection. The wine list is confirmed." He studied her with barely concealed amusement. "Don't you think you might be overdoing it? After all, it's just a—" "Don't say just," Luna interrupted, smiling despite her nerves. "More important than winning the national contest. By far." Her phone buzzed. "Arthur, is everything okay? I'm getting nervous." Luna looked at the message and felt the warmth move through her that still surprised her every time. The powerful CEO of Leon Corp, who navigated board coups and billion-dollar negotiations without visible emotion, was nervous about a dinner. "Everything's perfect. Just make sure you're on time. Love you." Those last 2 words still felt like discovering something. For so long, love had been a thing she couldn't afford, too consumed with surviving, with protecting her family. Now it moved through her life like sunlight through a window she had finally opened. "Luna." Pedro ran in, tablet first. "Look at this." Victor Meneses sentenced to 15 years in prison. The photo showed the former restaurateur, diminished and pale, being led away from a courthouse. Luna read the headline and felt something release in her chest. Not triumph, not the satisfaction of revenge. Something quieter. Completion. Finally, she murmured. Justice had come too late for her father. But it had come. Carlos Oliveira had been fully exonerated, his honors restored, his story the subject of a documentary currently in production. The poisoning that had destroyed him was now documented, proven, and attributed to exactly who had orchestrated it. I think Dad's happy today, Pedro said, looking at the portrait of Carlos that hung in the place of honor near the restaurant entrance. Luna pulled her brother close. I'm sure he is. That evening, the restaurant glowed. Soft lighting, white and gold flowers everywhere. Live music threading gently through the hum of arriving guests, friends, family, food critics, a handful of the competition's judges, and people who had simply been part of the story. Helena arrived on her wheelchair, but, to a collective intake of breath, stood at the entrance with only a cane, walking slowly but surely to her table. Her eyes were radiant. You look beautiful, Mom, Luna said, adjusting the silk wrap on Helena's shoulders. Your father would be so proud, Helena replied, cupping her daughter's face. Of everything you've built, of the person you've become. The room's conversation quieted by degrees as Arthur walked in. Impeccable suit, perfectly composed, and yet something in his eyes tonight was different. Unguarded, something he usually kept below the surface. He crossed directly to Luna. You look stunning, he said quietly, and kissed her. Not bad for a CEO, she replied, straightening his tie. Arthur laughed, the easy, unself-conscious kind that still surprised people who only knew him from the boardroom. Dinner flowed beautifully. 5 courses, each one crafted by Luna, each one telling a chapter of their shared story. From the simple flavors she had cooked for her sick mother to the refined techniques she had recovered from her father's notebooks, reinvented in her own hands. When dessert arrived, a modern interpretation of Carlos Oliveira's signature suite, Arthur rose and asked for the room's attention. A year ago, he began, voice steady but full of something he didn't try to suppress. I was a man who had reduced his entire life to numbers, contracts, and quarterly projections. My world was ordered, efficient, and completely empty. A murmur of understanding moved through the room. Then, by sheer chance, a delivery courier burst into my crisis meeting and solved in 1 second a problem that had defeated 30 engineers for an hour. Arthur looked at Luna, and the tenderness in his expression was open and unashamed. In that moment, though I didn't know it yet, my life was rearranged permanently. He walked to her and took her hands. You showed me what courage actually looks like, Luna, what integrity costs, and why it's worth it. You showed me there are things that matter more than power or profit. You reminded me that the most important things in life cannot be delegated, contracted, or measured on a spreadsheet. He reached into his jacket pocket, produced a small velvet box, knelt. Luna's breath abandoned her. Luna Oliveira, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? The room went perfectly still. She looked at the ring, a sapphire cradled in small diamonds, elegant, unflashy, precisely right. Yes, she whispered. 1,000 times yes. The room erupted. Helena wept without reserve. Pedro leaped onto his chair. Miguel uncorked champagne before Arthur had even finished sliding the ring onto her finger. As the metal settled warm against her skin, Luna felt something she hadn't had words for until this moment. The gentle, certain sense that her father was present, somewhere very close, smiling. 6 months later, on a morning soft with coastal light and a breeze that carried the scent of flowers, Luna stood in front of a mirror in ivory lace and tried to remember to breathe. The ceremony was to be held in the garden of a seaside colonial estate. The path to the altar lined with white and gold petals, floral arrangements so natural they seemed to have grown from the ground overnight. Hold still, sweetheart, Helena said, adjusting the veil with steady hands. The treatment Arthur had funded was giving her back something that had seemed permanently lost. I'm so nervous, Mom, Luna admitted. More than I was before the competition final. Helena smiled. That's exactly right. Your father was the same at our wedding. He dropped the bouquet twice before the ceremony even started. A soft laugh. The mention of Carlos brought the familiar warm ache, and the warmth had long since learned to live alongside it. Pedro entered without knocking, sharp in his pageboy suit. Luna, there's a surprise outside. Don't ask questions. Just come. At the door stood a gray-haired man with gentle eyes. A familiar face she had only ever known from stories. Antonio Souza, the man said softly. I was your father's sous chef for 8 years. Luna's hand went to her mouth. He talked about you constantly, Antonio said. Called you his greatest creation. I came from Portugal the moment I heard. He stepped forward, eyes glistening. He asked me, years ago, that if anything ever happened to him, I should be here for you. A pause. He asked me to walk you down the aisle, if you'd allow it. Luna embraced him without a word, both of them crying and not minding at all. 300 guests waited under a crystalline sky. Journalists, célébrités chefs, politicians, people from every chapter of their story. By now, the wedding of Arthur Leong and Luna Oliveira was the social occasion of the year. But standing at the altar beneath an arch of white flowers, Arthur saw only the moment she appeared at the head of the aisle. He had composed himself for a great many difficult things in his life. He had not adequately prepared for this. Luna came toward him on Antonio's arm, glowing in a way that made the surrounding beauty feel like backdrop. When she met his eyes, she saw that his were full, and she stopped trying to hold her own tears back. When Antonio placed her hand in Arthur's, he leaned close. Carlos will be bursting with pride, he said. The vows they had written by hand moved even the guests who had arrived skeptical of sentiment. Luna, Arthur began, his voice quieter and less certain than anyone present had ever heard it. Before you, I believe success was measured in what could be acquired, negotiated, or built. You showed me that the truest wealth is found in the moments that cannot be bought, in courage, in integrity, in the particular way you face an unjust world without ever becoming it. He paused. I promise to spend every day trying to deserve the miracle of being the person you chose. I promise to honor your father's memory. And I promise never to forget that it only took 1 second for everything to change. Luna's voice cracked once. She steadied it. Arthur, you arrived when I had run out of reasons to believe things could be different. When no one else saw past the story they had decided to tell about me, you looked for the true one and risked everything to tell it instead. A breath. I promise to bring into our life the same love I put into every dish I make. I promise to be your refuge when the world becomes too loud. And I promise never to forget that it only takes 1 second. They exchanged rings, said the words, and when they kissed, the orchestra played and golden petals rained from above, and Pedro whistled so loudly that several guests covered their ears and laughed. The reception filled the garden with light and music and the smell of 7 courses that told, in food, the entire story of how they had found each other. Late in the evening, a quiet figure appeared at the edge of the celebration. Sofia Meneses returned from abroad after her husband's conviction, and visibly changed by everything that had followed. She approached the couple's table and stood for a moment without speaking. I came to ask for forgiveness, she said at last, her voice low. I looked away from what Victor was doing for too long, and by the time I understood it fully, the damage was done. Luna rose and embraced her. The room held its breath. Today is a day for new beginnings, Luna said. For all of us. When the couple took the dance floor for their first waltz, Arthur moved as though he had been waiting for this for a long time. Wife, he murmured, tasting the word. Husband, she answered, her cheek against his shoulder. Later in the evening, Pedro climbed onto the stage and commandeered the band's microphone with characteristic lack of restraint. Hey everyone, important announcement, he hollered. Luna and Arthur are opening a new restaurant together. And it's going to be called 1 Second, because that's how long it took my sister to fix a security crisis and steal the heart of the richest guy in the city. Laughter lifted into the garden air. Arthur shook his head, grinning. Luna buried her face in his jacket. Near midnight, the two of them slipped away to a quiet corner of the garden, the party still glowing behind them. Arthur wrapped his arms around her, both of them looking out at the ocean beyond the property line, silver under the stars. "Are you happy?" he asked against her hair. "More than I thought possible," she said. She turned in his arms, looking up at him. "You know what I love most about you? Tell me. You turn simple things into something that matters." She smiled. A 1 second fix became a meeting that changed everything. A delivery became a love story. She took his hand and pressed it gently to her stomach. Arthur went very still. Then his expression, so careful in every boardroom, so composed in every crisis, came completely undone. "A baby," he breathed. "Our very own little miracle," Luna confirmed, tears of pure joy in her eyes. He held her as though she were the most extraordinary thing in the world, which, to him, she was, and kissed her under the stars while the party hummed warmly behind them. After a long moment, both of them looked up. One star glowed a little brighter. "Your father's watching," Arthur whispered. Luna smiled at the sky, at the soft darkness full of light. "Love has come, Dad," she thought. "And it's here to stay." Behind them, guests danced and laughed and raised glasses to a love that had survived everything thrown at it: power, conspiracy, grief, and the weight of a story that needed to be told differently before it could end well. The CEO and the delivery girl, the businessman and the chef. Two people who collided in exactly the right moment of exactly the wrong day, and found in each other something neither had known they were looking for. It only took 1 second. Everything else was just the rest of the story.